You think they've forgotten you. You think their silence means they've moved on. But what if I told you that silence is not rejection, it's fear. It's longing wrapped in pride. It's a heart that wants to reach for you but doesn't know how. The avoidant doesn't say, I miss you. They show it in the spaces between their words. And if you learn to see beyond the silence, you'll understand one truth when they pull away. Sometimes it's their way of asking you to come closer. When an avoidant person starts to show subtle signs of vulnerability, it's never obvious. It's not in the words they say. It's in what they don't say. It's in the pause before they reply, the hesitation in their voice, the quiet checking in that seems meaningless but carries 1,000 emotions. You see, avoidants aren't cold, they're terrified. Terrified of being hurt, of being seen, of needing someone and being disappointed again. So when they start to show small cracks in their armor, that's not weakness. That's courage in disguise. That's their heart whispering, can I trust you with this part of me? You have to understand something powerful. Vulnerability is not their language. Survival is. They've learned that distance protects. That silence keeps them safe. But deep down, even they crave connection. When they start asking about you, even casually, when they like an old photo or send a random text, that's their way of saying, I'm still here, but I don't know how to come closer. Most people miss those moments because they're waiting for big words, grand gestures. But love doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers through subtle actions. When they respond slower, it's not always disinterest. Sometimes it's fear. When they disappear, it's not always rejection. Sometimes it's their way of managing emotions that feel too big to control. Avoidants live in the tension between wanting love and fearing it. They stand at the door of intimacy, hand on the handle, terrified to open it but unable to walk away. That's why your patience matters. Your understanding becomes the light that slowly melts their walls. But here's the truth you must remember. You can't force them to open up. You can't push them to be vulnerable on your timeline. What you can do is create safety. You can show consistency, warmth, and authenticity. When they sense that you see them without judgment, something inside them softens. They begin to believe that maybe, just maybe, it's safe to let someone in. That's the turning point when their silence becomes an invitation, not a barrier. So when you notice those small signals, the random message, the half smile, the quiet presence, don't overlook them. Those are the cracks in their armor where love begins to enter, because every time an avoidant lets their guard down, even a little, it's not a sign of weakness, it's the beginning of trust. Inside every avoidant heart, there's a silent war raging, a battle between the desperate need for love and the overwhelming fear of it. They want closeness, but the moment someone gets too near, panic rises like a tidal wave. They start pulling away, convincing themselves that solitude is safer, that distance means control. But deep down, they crave connection just like everyone else. The difference is love feels dangerous to them. It feels like surrender. And surrender to someone who's been hurt feels like losing themselves all over again. You have to understand, avoidants aren't running from you. They're running from the vulnerability that love demands. Love requires openness, honesty, emotional exposure. And to an avoidant, that's like standing naked in a storm. Their body remembers past pain, betrayal, abandonment. So even when their heart says stay, their fear screams run. This inner tug of war is exhausting, and it's not something they control consciously. It's survival. It's the mind's way of saying, protect yourself before you get hurt again. But here's the paradox. Every time they run, the emptiness grows deeper. The silence gets louder. They try to numb the longing, but the human soul wasn't designed for isolation. So eventually, their desire starts pushing through the cracks of fear. That's when they peek at your stories, remember your laugh, or send that one short message that says, hey, it's not just a text, it's a battle cry from the part of them that still believes in connection. And this is where your awareness becomes power. When you understand that their pullback isn't rejection, but protection, you stop reacting with ego. You stop chasing or withdrawing out of frustration. Instead, you respond with calm strength, the kind that tells them, I see your fear, but I'm not here to hurt you. That energy disarms them. It quiets the voice in their head that says, love equals danger. Over time, the balance begins to shift. Desire starts to win small battles. Fear starts losing its grip, because love, when it's met with patience and empathy, heals even the most guarded heart. So remember, when they retreat, don't take it personally. Their silence is not a wall, it's a wound. And every moment you meet that wound with compassion instead of judgment, you help them believe that maybe, just maybe, love doesn't have to hurt this time. An avoidant doesn't test you with words. They test you with silence, distance, and inconsistency. It's not about playing games, it's about protection. Deep inside, they're asking a silent question, can I feel safe with you? Every time they pull away, ignore a message, or act detached, they're not trying to hurt you, they're observing. They want to see if you'll still care when they retreat, if you'll stay calm when they create space. To them, love isn't proven in the good moments. It's revealed in how someone reacts when things get uncomfortable. Avoidants have learned through experience that closeness often comes with pain. Maybe they grew up in environments where vulnerability led to rejection or where expressing needs was met with punishment or shame. So now their subconscious runs a pattern. If I test you and you stay, maybe I can trust you. It's not fair and it's not easy, but it's real. They want love, but they need proof that it's safe to have it. When you respond with frustration or try to chase them for reassurance, it confirms their deepest fear that love always comes with pressure and expectation. But when you stay centered, when you give them space without resentment, something powerful happens. You show them emotional maturity. You show them that connection doesn't have to mean control and that love can coexist with freedom. That's when their walls start to lower, not because you forced them, but because you made safety more appealing than distance. You see, testing emotional safety is their way of finding truth in a world that once taught them not to trust it. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for consistency. They notice how you handle their silences, how you speak when they're quiet, how you react when they disappear for a while. Every calm, patient response teaches their nervous system that love can feel steady, not chaotic. So when they pull back, don't panic. When they test your patience, don't take it personally. Their behavior is a reflection of fear, not a judgment of your worth. Show compassion, but keep your boundaries strong. That's the balance that earns their trust. Because one day, when their guard finally drops, you'll realize that every test wasn't meant to push you away. It was their way of asking, are you safe enough to stay when I can't? And when they find that answer in you, healing begins. There comes a moment when the silence of an avoidant isn't peace, it's ache. They tell themselves they're fine, that they don't need anyone, that distance means control. But deep inside, that emptiness starts to echo. The same walls that once protected them become their prison. Their mind tries to stay detached, but their heart begins to wander back to the moments that felt real. Your voice, your laugh, your energy. This is when avoidance quietly turns into longing. It doesn't happen with dramatic gestures. It happens in the smallest, almost invisible ways. You'll see it in how they linger on your profile, how they replay old conversations, how they accidentally, like a post from months ago. These aren't random actions. They're confessions from a guarded heart. The avoidant wants to reconnect, but pride and fear hold them hostage. They start hoping you'll notice the hints, that you'll reach out first, because for them, admitting they miss you feels like surrendering power, and surrender terrifies them. What they don't realize is that longing is the beginning of surrender, not to another person, but to their own truth. You can't suppress love forever. You can bury it, silence it, distract yourself from it, but eventually the soul rebels. The human heart was never built to survive on isolation alone. When avoidants begin to feel the pull of missing someone, it's their inner self begging for connection again, craving the very thing they've been running from. The challenge is, they won't say it directly. They won't text, I miss you. Instead, they'll find excuses, asking how you've been, sharing a memory, or showing up in subtle digital footprints. To the untrained eye, it seems meaningless. But to someone who understands, those little gestures are their way of saying, I still care, but I'm scared to show it. If you're on the other end of this, remember, don't chase, but don't close the door either. Let your energy stay open, warm, and calm. They're watching, even in silence. The moment they sense safety, the moment they feel your presence isn't demanding, that's when longing overcomes fear. Because when avoidance turns into longing, it's not weakness, it's awakening. It's the heart remembering what the mind tried to forget. And that quiet H they feel. It's the beginning of their journey back to love. Most relationships between avoidants and those who love them collapse, not because of lack of love, but because of misunderstanding. The avoidant pulls away and the other person feels rejected. The other person reaches out and the avoidant feels pressured. Each one reacts from pain, not truth. And without realizing it, both become trapped in a loop, a cycle of chasing and running, of silence and frustration. But here's the truth. This cycle doesn't have to continue. It can be broken, not through force, but through awareness, empathy, and emotional intelligence. The key is understanding that avoidance is not indifference. It's protection. When someone grows up believing that closeness brings pain, they learn to survive by keeping distance. So when they pull back, it's not to punish you, it's to feel safe. But the partner on the other side often takes it personally, thinking they don't care. That's where the misunderstanding begins. Both sides start reacting to fear instead of love. The avoidant hides, the other demands reassurance. The more one pushes, the more the other retreats. Breaking this cycle starts with changing how you interpret their behavior. Instead of assuming rejection, start seeing fear. Instead of matching their silence with silence, respond with calmness and compassion. You don't have to chase, but you also don't need to close your heart. The energy you bring to the situation determines whether the wall between you grows higher or starts to crumble. For the avoidant, healing begins when they realize not everyone will abandon them when things get hard. For their partner, growth happens when they learn to love without controlling. It's a dance of patience and presence, of staying grounded even when emotions run high. When both people stop reacting from pain, understanding replaces judgment. And here's the beautiful part: once the cycle breaks, real intimacy begins. Because true love doesn't come from constant closeness. It comes from safety, from knowing that even when distance happens, connection still exists. So the next time an avoidant withdraws, don't ask, why are they doing this to me? Instead, ask, what are they afraid of right now? That shift in mindset transforms everything. Because when you replace reaction with compassion and fear with patience, you don't just save the relationship, you rewrite the pattern. You teach love to feel safe again. Healing an avoidant heart isn't about fixing them. It's about creating the space where courage feels stronger than fear and connection feels safer than isolation. You can't force them to open up, but you can inspire them to. And that inspiration doesn't come through words. It comes through energy, through presence, through the quiet consistency that whispers, you don't have to run anymore. For an avoidant, love has always felt dangerous. But healing begins the moment they realize someone sees their fear and chooses understanding instead of judgment. Courage, for them, isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small, terrifying steps toward vulnerability, sending a text, admitting they miss someone, allowing themselves to feel without shutting down. Each act of openness, no matter how small, is a victory over years of self-protection. And when those moments are met with safety instead of rejection, something inside begins to shift. The nervous system starts to calm. The walls begin to loosen. That's when connection starts to heal what fear once controlled. But healing is a two-way street. The one who loves the avoidant must also have courage, the courage to love without expectations, to hold space without smothering, to stay present without losing themselves. Because connection is not about control. It's about acceptance. It's saying, I see your pain and I'll meet it with patience. That kind of love doesn't chase or demand. It invites. And invitations, not pressure, are what draw avoidance out of hiding. Over time, courage becomes contagious. When they feel your grounded energy, they start to mirror it. When they sense that your love doesn't come with strings, they begin to trust that they're safe to feel. Slowly, the armor that once protected them starts to fall away, not because they stopped fearing pain, but because they started believing that connection can exist without it. Healing through courage and connection isn't just about repairing relationships, it's about transformation. It's the process of rewriting old stories that said love equals danger and replacing them with new truths. Love can be gentle, presence can be safe, and vulnerability can be power. Because when courage meets compassion, fear loses its grip. And in that moment, the avoidant doesn't just find love, they find freedom.